how to evaluate property value based on rental income. And this is a really important skill for a real estate investor to have, because sometimes when you're looking at a property, there might not be a sales comparable and all we have is the income to go by. So what do you do then? Because if you get it wrong, it can be very, very expensive. But if you get it right, everything else can fall into place very easily. And I'll let you in on how to do that when you only know the property's income. Ready? Let's go. All right, so I'm gonna walk you through the 4 steps to determining a property's value based on its income, so that you'll always be able to make the best decisions for yourself when you're buying income property. So there are 3 primary methods. There's more methods to determining value, but there's 3 real primary ones that real estate investors use specifically to determine a property's value. Separately, each method gives you a little snapshot of that value, but not a total picture. But being able to use each one of them individually can give you a lot of different perspectives on what it's going to take to create a profitable real estate investment, whether that's going to be a fix and flip or it's going to be a rental property. Today, we're talking about income property and what do you do and how do you determine the value of a property when all you have is the income to go by, because that can be very common. But before we go there, let's go over the 3 approaches to determining value. The first one is the sales comparable approach. And you might refer to this as comps. Compare, that's short for comparables. And what you're looking for are like properties, like the one that you're looking at, similar properties that have sold recently. Because the market is really what determines the value of a property. Ultimately, whatever someone is willing to pay for it, that's what the property is worth. So to determine what the subject property you may be looking at is, most people will go and see what have properties like it sold for recently. What has a property that attracted a buyer, the buyer went ahead and wrote a contract, they went through the entire due diligence process, they followed all the way through and signed the final documents to consummate the sale. That is the primary method people use to determine a property's value. Now the second way is what we call the cost approach. And what we're doing there is we're going to evaluate if we had to build that property from the ground up, how much would the materials and the labor cost to make that happen? Now there's 2 common areas where this is gonna come into play for a real estate investor. The first is when it comes to determining your property's insurance. Because in some markets, it might cost more to build that property than it would to buy an existing one that's already been built. And in other markets, it's vice versa. So when it comes to insurance, I always choose the greater of those 2. Is it worth more as an existing structure, or would it cost me more to build it brand new? Because if that property were to burn down, I want to get the most money I can for it. And if I'm in a market where I have to rebuild it, I want to make sure that I've got enough money to go ahead and rebuild the property. Or if I'm in a market where I could actually build that property for cheaper than what it was worth, then I want to be insured for the higher number. I want the most money for my insurance. I pay a lot into it and very rarely do I get to use it. So when I do get to use it, I want to make sure I get the most money possible back. The second area that you'll use the cost approach is when you're analyzing repairs. Like, how much is it gonna cost to fix this house up to get it, say, rent ready? Or how much is it gonna cost for me to fix this property up to get it on the cover of Better Homes and Gardens? I don't know. But you wanna know what things cost to go ahead and rehab. And that's where you'd use the cost approach. Now, the third approach to analyzing a property and coming up with its value is the income approach. And that's what we're gonna talk about now. You see, rental properties can all be a little bit different, particularly once you get outside of the single family market space and you're looking at duplexes or 3plexes or 4plexes or even, actual apartment buildings. It's difficult to find like properties that have sold to compare them to. So you have to use other approaches. Now you can use the cost approach, but it's not always the best indicators what the property will sell for, what it'll actually be worth to you. So we have to use the income approach because most people are gonna buy these properties based on the income that they generate. That's why they're buying them. So if you come across a property that doesn't have any sales comparables and all you have is the income, you need to know how to determine the value of the property from just the income itself. And before I break down how to do that, if you're really serious about your real estate investing, go ahead and click the subscribe button because I post videos like this each and every week, money-making videos that'll really help you level up your real estate investing game. And I don't want you to miss it. I want you to make as much money as you possibly can. I want you to get everything that real estate promises when it comes to wealth and income and all that good stuff. So click the subscribe button. So if all you have is the income of a property, you can still determine its value. You can still come up with a pretty accurate idea of what that property is worth. And we use what we call the gross rent multiplier, or GRM. The value of a property equals the gross rent multiplier times the annual gross income. Calculating the gross rent multiplier is very simple, as it only requires two pieces of information: the property value and the annual gross rent. The general formula to calculate the gross rent multiplier is property value divided by the annual gross income of the property. But our issue right now is we don't have the property's value. All we have is the income. And we don't have the gross rent multiplier either. So we have to find the gross rent multiplier elsewhere in order for us to complete our equation to determine the property's value. So that is step one, to determine the gross rent multiplier. And you want the gross rent multiplier of properties that are similar to the one that you're looking at and have recently sold in the same area of where your property sits. Now you can often find gross rent multipliers through brokerages and in their published reports and in their sales reports. That's one place to look. Or you can contact a local appraiser or a brokerage to find out what the gross rent multiplier is at the moment for that specific market for that type of property. That's another way that you can do this. So what we'll do is we'll just use an arbitrary number. We'll pretend that we called an appraiser and they gave us the number and they said the gross rent multiplier in your market is 8. Now, step two, you need to determine the annual gross rent of the property. And fortunately, that is the number that we do have. And we'll say for this example, the gross annual rent is $15,000. So the last step is to multiply the gross rent multiplier by the annual gross income. 8 times 15,000 gives us a property value of $120,000. And that is how you determine your property's value based on the income alone, by using the gross rent multiplier. Now, if you'd like to get started investing in off-market deals and finding discounted deals and finding income properties like these, I put together a free training for you. And you can take a look at that at mattsfreetraining.com. I'll go ahead and put that link down below in the description for you too. Alrighty, so that's it for today. That's how you do it. Hope to see you soon. Take care.